Today, for medical investigations, we're going to be talking about how the digestive system works and how it helps to maintain balance throughout the body. So, the digestive system works to break down nutrients and molecules so they can be used for metabolism, which are all the chemical processes of the body. Now, the food that passes through the digestive tract, which is also known as the alimentary canal, and other connecting organs, which are organs that are not directly involved in passing along the food through the digestive tract. They rather assist in breaking down the food indirectly, such as the liver. Next, we have the functions of the digestive system, or what the digestive system executes and implements in order to maintain an internal balance, or homeostasis, throughout the body. This is so crucial, as is every system and part of the body, because if one thing can't function properly, they all start to have trouble. The digestive system helps to break down the necessary nutrients that the body needs so that the cells will be able to use it. And some of these main nutrients include sugars, proteins, and fats. Another thing the digestive system is responsible for is to make the food small enough so that the important and necessary nutrients can be removed and taken into the body via the circulatory system. Most of absorption actually happens into the blood in the small intestine, while a small percentage of things like alcohol and other drugs get absorbed in the stomach. And altogether, the functions of the digestive system were made possible by mechanical and chemical digestion, which we'll talk about later in this video. Now first, food immediately starts getting digested by the salivary glands. These glands are exocrine glands. Exocrine glands are not part of the endocrine system, and they are glands with ducts that secrete a substance, which in this case happens to be saliva, which begins chemically digesting the food by breaking apart the bonds. There are three main types of salivary glands. First, which are the largest salivary glands, we have the parotid glands, which are located right in front of the ears. The parotid salivary glands secrete saliva that comes out of ducts that empty in the back of the mouth. Ducts are small tubes that help to transport substances, like bile ducts in the liver. Also, if you happen to notice, parotid rhymes with carotid. The carotid artery is a major artery that happens to be right near the parotid glands, specifically the external carotid artery. Then we have the submandibular glands, which produce saliva that is released under the tongue, and the sublingual glands, which are located on both sides of the tongue. Again, all of these glands have ducts that empty somewhere in the mouth. Saliva is made mostly of water along with mucus and amylase, which is an enzyme that helps to hydrolyze or break down starch and glucogen, which are many glucose and sugar bonded together. Besides how saliva chemically breaks down the sugars, which are usually from carbohydrates, it also moistens the food so swallowing is easier. Teeth also increase surface area of the food by grinding the food into smaller pieces. After chewing the food into many smaller pieces, and when the food is ready to move on to the esophagus, the tongue will wrap the food into a ball called a bolus, so it can go down the esophagus easily. Also, the epiglottis, which is a flap of cartilage, seals off the windpipe when eating. Cartilage is a smooth and elastic tissue that helps to protect the ends of long bones. Once the epiglottis closes the windpipe, the food is ready to move on to the esophagus. The esophagus is a muscular tube that's responsible for connecting and carrying foods and liquids from the mouth to the stomach. In the esophagus, peristalsis occurs to help further push down food to the stomach. This also occurs in the small intestine during digestion. Nerves from the nervous system that surround the esophageal tissue sense the bolus and signal to the brain through electrical signals called nerve impulses to start peristalsis. The epithelium, which is thin tissue that forms on the outside of hollow structures, is called the squamous mucosa, which contains squamous cells. These cells carry out many necessary esophageal functions. Finally, at the end of the esophagus, the lower esophageal sphincter, which is a bundle of muscles, opens when the bolus is ready to move on to the stomach. This sphincter also prevents acid from reaching and possibly even burning parts of the esophagus, which is commonly known as heartburn. Next, we have the stomach, which is a muscular and hollow organ where both types of digestion occur. The stomach is made of 4 parts: the opening, which is known as the cardiac, the fundus, which is right next to the cardiac, the body, which is a large middle region where most digestion in the stomach occurs, and finally, the antrum, which is the lowermost part that leads directly into the small intestine, specifically the first part of the small intestine, which is called the duodenum. The inside of the stomach, on the interior walls, are called rugae, which are folds. When foods and liquids are consumed, they unfold and allow for expansion to fit more food. The stomach lining is called the mucosa, which is also called the mucous membrane. These contain the gastric glands. The gastric glands release gastric juice. Gastric juice is made of many enzymes, including acids and hydrochloric acid, that helps to further break down the food. While gastric juice helps further break down food, is primarily used to break down proteins into amino acids, which is chemical digestion. Amino acids are building blocks of all different types of proteins, which help for growth, repair, and even rebuilding within different cells in the body. Then, aside from chemical digestion with gastric juice, churning in the stomach helps to break down food mechanically by mixing it, which thus increases the surface area. Next, gastrin, not to be confused with gastric juice, is a hormone secreted by cells in the stomach lining, and this gastrin stimulates the release of gastric juice, as well as triggering and warning other upcoming organs in the digestive tract, like the pancreas, for upcoming events. However, all of these secretions and movements in the stomach lining are controlled by one thing, and that is the vagus nerve and the sympathetic nervous system, which is a part of the autonomic nervous system, which is responsible for sensory activities. Then, once the food is ready to leave the stomach, it has been already made into a dense liquid called chyme. Then, a valve at the end of the stomach, called the pylorus, opens up when the chyme reaches the right consistency to move on to the small intestine. Also, cells in the stomach lining, called mucus cells, secrete a protein that contains mucus. The mucus prevents the acids from breaking and rupturing through. However, if acid is able to break through, it is called an ulcer. And that officially wraps up part 1 of this digestive system series. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for part 2 of this series.